The afternoon sun painted long shadows across our porch as I stood there, cardboard box in my arms, watching Aunt Colleen lock my mother's front door. The click of the deadbolt echoed louder than it should have. She turned to me with that practiced smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes, and tucked the key into her purse like it had always belonged to her. "You're not ready to be here alone, sweetie," she said, adjusting her sunglasses. "Not emotionally stable enough." The grief counselor agreed with me. I didn't remember talking to any grief counselor. Mom had been gone only 3 weeks, and the funeral flowers were still dying in vases inside. My throat felt too tight to argue. Colleen walked past me to Mom's Honda, sliding into the driver's seat like she'd done it 1,000 times before. "I'll keep everything safe until you're better," she called through the window. Inside my cardboard box sat a torn envelope, the one that had arrived the day before Mom's funeral. It should have contained her final letter to me. The envelope had my name written in Mom's shaky handwriting, but when I'd opened it that morning, I'd found nothing inside but air and the faint smell of her lavender perfume. That night, I lay on my friend Bethany's couch, staring at water stains on her ceiling. The box sat on the floor beside me, and I kept reaching down to touch the torn envelope, hoping somehow the letter would materialize inside it. Bethany's mom had offered their spare room when Colleen said I needed time away from painful memories. I pulled out my phone and opened Mom's email, desperate to read old messages, to hear her voice in typed words. I entered the password I'd always known. My birthday 0816, but the screen flashed red. "Incorrect password. Please try again." My hands shook as I typed it again, slower this time, making sure each number was right. The same red error message appeared. I tried her security questions, but those had been changed too. Someone had locked me out of my own mother's email account, and I hadn't done it. The ceiling fan hummed above me, and somewhere in the darkness, the truth started taking shape. Colleen had been the only other person in the house since Mom died. She'd been sorting through papers, she'd said, organizing things, being helpful. I pulled the empty envelope from the box and held it up to the lamplight, searching for answers in the torn paper. Morning came too early. I called First National Bank, the place where Mom had kept her savings account since before I was born. The automated voice made me press 7 different numbers before a real person answered. "I need to check my mother's account," I said. "Catherine Monroe. She passed away 3 weeks ago." The woman's voice softened. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Let me pull that up." Keyboard clicks filled the silence. "I see here that the remaining balance was transferred out by your legal guardian the day before the funeral. May I ask who's calling?" "I'm her daughter, June Monroe." More clicking. "And you're 17, correct?" "Yes, but I never had a legal guardian. My mom was my guardian." A longer pause this time. The transfer authorization shows signature from Colleen Burke, claiming guardianship status. The balance of $42,000 was moved to an account under her name. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. $42,000. Mom's entire life savings gone. She'd been saving for my college, working double shifts at the hospital for years to build that fund. "Can I see the transfer form?" "Yes. You'd need to come in with identification. We open at 9. I was already reaching for my shoes. The paralegal at First National had kind eyes but a serious mouth. He placed the transfer form on the desk between us, and I stared at my mother's signature at the bottom. Something felt wrong about it. Mom's handwriting had always been messy, shaky from the medication she'd taken in her final months. The signature on this form was smooth, confident, each letter perfectly formed. It looked like someone had traced it carefully, too carefully. "Your aunt claimed power of attorney," the paralegal said. "Do you know if your mother ever granted her that authority?" I shook my head. Mom never mentioned it. She always said everything would go to me. She promised. He leaned back in his chair, studying my face. "This signature looks suspicious to me, but I'm not a handwriting expert. You might want to contact a lawyer, preferably one who specializes in estate fraud." The words estate fraud made my stomach twist. Colleen wasn't just taking Mom's things. She was stealing my future, the one Mom had worked herself sick to build for me. The paralegal slid a business card across the desk. This attorney helped my sister with something similar. She's good and she offers free consultations. I tucked the card into my pocket next to the empty envelope, evidence accumulating like stones in my hands. Midnight found me standing outside Mom's house, my house, watching the windows for movement. Colleen's car wasn't in the driveway. She'd probably gone back to her apartment downtown, the one she'd complained about being too expensive just last month. I crept around to the side yard where we kept the garbage bins. If Colleen had taken things, maybe she'd thrown away evidence. Maybe she'd been careless. The bin lid creaked when I lifted it, and the smell of rotting takeout containers hit my face. Using my phone's flashlight, I dug through coffee grounds and crumpled papers. Then I saw it, shredded pieces of letterhead. I pulled them out carefully, fitting edges together like a puzzle. The words emerged slowly. Law offices of Thomas Garrett. Below that, fragments of sentences. Hereby designate my daughter June, sole beneficiary of property and assets. This was from Mom's lawyer. A letter explaining that everything should go to me. Colleen had shredded it and thrown it away, but she hadn't thrown it away far enough. Headlights swept across the yard. Car turned into the driveway, engine cutting suddenly. I froze, pieces of shredded letter in my hands. The car door opened, and Colleen's voice split the darkness like glass breaking. Breaking and entering now. Colleen's voice carried across 3 yards easily. She wanted the neighbors to hear. I knew you weren't stable, but this is criminal, June. Mrs. Chen's porch light flickered on next door. Mr. Rodriguez appeared at his window, phone in hand. This is my house, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My mom's house. Your mother's house that I'm managing as your guardian. Colleen marched toward me, heels clicking on concrete. I have every legal right to be here. Don't. You're trespassing. You're not my legal guardian. She pulled out her phone, finger hovering over the screen. I'll call the police right now if you don't leave. I have documentation, June. I have a file about your instability, your emotional problems. Do you want that on your record? The shredded pieces of letter felt like fire in my hands. I wanted to throw them at her feet, to scream about the stolen money and the forged signatures. But Mr. Rodriguez was watching, recording maybe. If Colleen called the police and I was arrested, who would believe me? I backed away slowly, stuffing the letter pieces into my jacket pocket. This isn't over. Yes, Colleen said quietly, smile returning. It is. The call came during third period English. Mrs. Palmer handed me the phone with a concerned expression, and the school secretary's voice trembled slightly as she spoke. June, we received some documentation from your guardian this morning. There are concerns about your emotional state. The school counselor needs to see you before you can return to classes. What kind of documentation? A psychological evaluation report. It suggests you're experiencing severe grief-related instability and possible delusions. Your Aunt Colleen filed it with recommendations for mandatory counseling. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. I never had a psychological evaluation. The report is signed by Dr. Helena Price. It's very detailed. After I hung up, I sat in the empty hallway outside the principal's office, understanding finally clicking into place. Colleen wasn't just stealing my inheritance. She was systematically destroying my credibility, building a narrative where I was unstable and she was my concerned guardian. If anyone questioned her, she'd point to this fabricated report and say, see? The girl is delusional. The school counselor appeared, file folder in hand. June, let's talk. But I was already researching Dr. Helena Price on my phone. The search results showed a retired psychiatrist who'd closed her practice 5 years ago. The signature on my evaluation report belonged to someone who no longer even practiced medicine. 2 weeks passed. I took a morning shift washing dishes at Rosie's Diner and an evening shift stocking shelves at Quick Mart. Between jobs, I lived in a tiny room behind the diner that Rosie rented to me for almost nothing. The room smelled like grease and old coffee, but it was mine. At the county courthouse, I filled out forms for emancipation, checking boxes that felt like tiny rebellions. Age, 17. Parent/guardian, deceased. Current living situation, independent. The clerk behind the bulletproof glass barely looked at me as she processed the paperwork. Then her expression changed. There are flags on your name in the system. What kind of flags? She clicked through screens, frowning. Family stability flags. Placed by someone named Colleen Burke, claiming guardianship. These flags require a hearing before emancipation can proceed. And there's a note here about psychological concerns. Those are lies. I'm sure they are, honey. The clerk's voice was gentle but firm. But you'll need proof. Get a lawyer. Document everything. I walked out into the courthouse parking lot, and something inside me hardened like steel cooling in water. Colleen wanted to play games with paperwork. Fine. Could play too. At the library, I created a new email account and started a folder labeled Evidence. I began taking screenshots of everything. Colleen's social media posts, her financial records that I found through public databases, every document I could access. The message appeared in my Instagram DMs on a Tuesday night while I was eating microwave ramen in my tiny room. The sender's name was Victoria Wells, and her profile picture showed a woman in her 50s with kind eyes. I worked with your mother at Memorial Hospital. There are things you should know. Can we meet? My finger hovered over the delete button. This could be a trap. Someone Colleen had sent to gather more evidence of my instability. But something about the profile felt real. Years of posts, photos with other nurses, genuine comments and connections. I replied, "Coffee shop on Main Street. Tomorrow at 3. I'll be there. I'm so sorry about Catherine. She was wonderful." The next afternoon, Victoria arrived early, already sitting in the corner booth when I walked in. She had Mom's memorial card placed on the table, edges worn like she'd been carrying it in her wallet. "Your mother talked about you constantly," she said before I even sat down. She was so proud. Near the end, she kept saying she needed to protect you from something. From someone. From Colleen. Victoria nodded slowly. She came to the hospital 2 weeks before she passed. She had papers with her, legal documents. She told me she'd updated everything, that she wanted to make sure you were taken care of. She gave me the lawyer's name in case anything happened. Victoria slid a business card across the table. Thomas Garrett. He works downtown, specializes in estates and wills. Your mother paid him to draft everything properly, to make sure there could be no confusion. I pulled out the shredded pieces of letterhead I'd been carrying, fitting them together on the table. Victoria's eyes widened. "That's his letterhead. Where did you find that?" "My aunt threw it away. I found it in the garbage." "Then she knows what your mother wanted." Victoria's voice went hard. "And she's trying to hide it." I told her everything. The stolen money, the forged signatures, the fake psychological reports. Victoria listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, she said, "Your mother knew this might happen. She told me once that Colleen was always jealous, always resentful. That's why she went to the lawyer in the first place." "Did she say what was in the will?" "Just that everything would go to you. The house, the savings, her car. She said she'd written you a letter too, explaining things. She mailed it to your house a week before she died." The torn envelope in my pocket suddenly felt heavier. The letter hadn't disappeared. Colleen had taken it. Thomas Garrett's office occupied the 3rd floor of an old brick building downtown. His receptionist led me to a small conference room where he sat reviewing files, reading glasses perched on his nose. "June Monroe," he said, standing to shake my hand. "I wondered if you'd find me. You knew. I mailed documents to your house 3 weeks ago. When no one responded, I suspected something was wrong." He pulled a thick folder from his briefcase. "I have copies of everything your mother drafted. She was very specific about her wishes." He laid papers on the table. The will, property deeds, bank account information. In every document, one name appeared as beneficiary. June and Monroe. Name. Only mine. "Your mother also wrote you a letter," Garrett said. She sealed it and gave it to me for safekeeping. I mailed the original to your house, but I always keep copies of important documents. He pulled out a cream-colored envelope, my name written in Mom's shaky handwriting across the front. My hands trembled as I took it, feeling the weight of paper inside, proof that the empty envelope Colleen had left me was part of her deception. I didn't open the letter in the office. Instead, I waited until I was back in my tiny room, sitting on the narrow bed with the door locked. The envelope felt like holding a piece of Mom, her last words preserved in paper and ink. Inside, 3 pages filled with her handwriting. My dearest June, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry I can't be there to see you graduate, to help you move into college, to watch you become the amazing woman I know you'll be. But I need you to know something important. Everything I have is yours. The house, the car, my savings. I worked for years to give you a secure start. I know Aunt Colleen will try to take it. She's been asking about my finances since I got sick, making comments about how she could help manage things. I've seen the way she looks at the house, calculating its value. That's why I went to Thomas Garrett. Everything is legal, documented, protected. Don't let her convince you otherwise. Stand up for yourself, sweetheart. You're stronger than you know. I love you forever, Mom. Tears blurred the words as I read it 3 times. Mom had known. She'd seen Colleen's greed and tried to protect me from it. The letter was dated 2 weeks before she died, the same week she'd updated her will. Garrett had given me a certified copy of the will and contact information for a forensic handwriting expert. I had evidence now. Real documented proof. At the county clerk's office, a bored-looking man typed my mother's name into his computer, and his expression shifted from disinterest to concern. There's an active property transfer in process, he said. For the house at 847 Maple Avenue. It's scheduled to finalize next week. What kind of transfer? From Catherine Monroe, deceased, to Colleen Burke. She's claiming the property as an original asset purchased jointly, which would bypass probate. My stomach dropped. Colleen wasn't just stealing the house. She was rewriting history, claiming she'd owned it all along. If the transfer finalized, I'd have no home. Everything Mom worked for would belong to her sister, the one who'd barely visited while Mom was dying. Can I stop it? The clerk studied his screen. If you have legal documentation proving otherwise, you can file an objection. It would freeze the transfer until a hearing. I pulled out Garrett's folder, hands shaking with anger and relief. I have documentation. The clerk copied everything, stamped official seals, assigned case numbers. This will freeze the sale immediately. The system will notify all parties within 24 hours. I walked out of that office feeling something close to power. Colleen thought she'd won, thought I was too young and too broken to fight back. She was wrong. Late that night, I sat in the library using their public computers, digging through public records and tax filings. If Colleen was lying about the house, what else was she lying about? The first thing I found was her boutique, Burke's Vintage, opened 6 months ago downtown. The business license showed a massive commercial loan, $50,000 at a high interest rate. Her social media showed constant renovations, expensive inventory, advertising campaigns. Then I found her tax returns. Last year, she'd claimed me as a dependent, receiving a refund of $3,200. I hadn't lived with her. She'd barely seen me more than twice that year. But on paper, she was supporting me, collecting money she didn't deserve. I screenshot everything, adding it to my evidence folder. Each document was another stone in the case I was building, another piece of the puzzle showing Colleen's financial desperation and willingness to lie. The boutique's Instagram showed her posting cheerfully about new inventory, but the comment sections told a different story. Still waiting for my order from July. Returned items 2 months ago, no refund yet. Beautiful store but terrible customer service. She was drowning financially, and Mom's inheritance had looked like a life raft. But it was my life raft, built from Mom's hard work and sacrifice. And I was done letting Colleen steal it. The next morning, I returned to Thomas Garrett's office with my evidence folder bulging. He reviewed everything methodically, making notes on a yellow legal pad. "This is good," he said finally. "This shows motive and pattern of deception. Combined with the will and your mother's letter, we have a strong case. What do I do now?" "I'll file the formal objection to the property transfer this afternoon. I'll also file a complaint with the banking commission about the unauthorized account transfer." He looked at me seriously. "This is going to get ugly, June. Your aunt will fight back." Her. Garrett submitted the paperwork before noon. The objection was official, stamped, filed with the court. The property transfer froze immediately. All pending sales cancelled. Somewhere across town, Colleen would be receiving notification soon. I worked my shift at the diner, serving coffee and washing dishes, waiting for the explosion. Came faster than I expected. At 6 p.m., Colleen burst through the diner's front door, makeup smeared, hair wild. "You ruined everything," she screamed across the restaurant. Rosie stepped between us immediately. "Ma'am, you need to leave. She's destroying my life." Colleen's voice cracked. "I took care of everything, I managed everything, and she threw it away like trash." "Security is 2 minutes away," Rosie said firmly. Phone already pressed to her ear. Colleen stood in the middle of Rosie's diner, shaking with rage, while other customers stared and pulled out phones. I stayed behind Rosie, watching my aunt unravel. "I saved you," Colleen hissed. "You were nothing without me. Emotionally unstable, barely functioning. I gave you structure, I protected you. You stole from me," I said quietly. "I took what I deserved. Do you know how many years I spent helping Catherine? How many times I lent her money she never paid back? That house should have been mine years ago." A man at the counter was definitely recording now. I could see the phone aimed at Colleen, red light blinking. "You need to leave," Rosie repeated, but Colleen wasn't done. "You can't prove anything. I have guardianship papers, I have power of attorney, I have everything documented. You're just a grieving teenager making up stories. Then why are you here?" "Yes. If you have everything documented, why are you screaming in a diner?" The question hung in the air. Colleen's mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. Then she turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the bell above it broke loose and clattered to the floor. Rosie squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded, but my hands were shaking. The man at the counter approached us hesitantly. "I got that all on video if you need it." That night, Colleen's social media meltdown began. She posted a long, rambling rant about ungrateful family members and false accusations. The post included photos of what she claimed were legal documents proving her guardianship and ownership of Mom's house. But Colleen had made a crucial mistake. One of the photos clearly showed the forged power of attorney document on her kitchen table, and the lighting exposed something I hadn't noticed before. The signature looked traced, too perfect, with none of Mom's natural shakiness. I screenshot the post immediately, but I wasn't the only one. The comments section filled with questions. Why does that signature look so clean? Isn't forgery illegal? This doesn't look right. Several of Mom's former co-workers from Memorial Hospital saw the posts and began commenting with their own memories. Victoria Wells wrote, "Catherine updated her will specifically to prevent this. June is the rightful heir." Another nurse added, "Catherine talked about protecting June from family members who were only interested in her money. Sad to see she was right to worry." The post got shared, then shared again. By midnight, hundreds of people had seen it, and dozens were questioning Colleen's story. She tried deleting the original post, but people had saved copies, reposting them with commentary about the suspicious documents. The internet had done what I couldn't, exposed her lies to everyone she knew. 2 days later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "June. It's Colleen. Please don't hang up." Her voice sounded different. Smaller, tired. I pressed the record button on my phone. I'd researched the laws. Single-party consent state meant I could legally record any conversation I was part of. "I'm listening," I said. "I just want to talk. To explain. I know things got out of hand, but I was only trying to help." You have to understand, your mother and I had an agreement. She wanted me to handle things after she was gone. That's not what her will says. Long pause. Her will was complicated. She was heavily medicated when she wrote it, not thinking clearly. I had to make decisions, handle the paperwork because you were too emotional to deal with it all. So you forged her signature. I didn't forge anything. I just simplified things. Made it easier. Her voice cracked. June, I'm begging you. Drop the objections, drop the investigations. We can work this out privately. I'll give you some of the money, we can share the house. Please. You stole everything Mom left me. I was protecting it. You're 17, you don't understand financial management. I was going to help you by transferring $42,000 to your account the day before her funeral. Silence. Then, quietly, I needed that money. It wasn't yours to need. The caseworker from Child Protective Services arrived at Rosie's diner during my morning shift. She was young, maybe 30, with a thick folder and serious eyes. I'm investigating the guardianship claim filed by Colleen Burke, she said. There are some irregularities that need clarification. I led her to the back office where I'd stored my evidence binder. 3 inches thick now, every document organized chronologically, every screenshot labeled and dated. I handed her the recorded phone call where Colleen admitted to handling Mom's paperwork. The caseworker listened to the entire recording without expression. Then she reviewed the documents one by one. The forged power of attorney, the false psychological report, the tax returns claiming me as a dependent, Colleen's social media rant with a visible forged document. This is very thorough, she said finally. Did you compile all this yourself? My mom taught me to document everything. She worked in hospital administration. The caseworker made notes in her folder. There will be a formal investigation into the guardianship claim and the financial transfers. I'll also be referring this to the county prosecutor's office. Document forgery is a serious crime. After she left, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief exactly, but the weight shifting slightly. Official systems were finally paying attention. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Within a week, Colleen's boutique was audited by the State Revenue Department. They'd found the tax irregularities I documented, claiming dependents she didn't have, business expenses that weren't legitimate, revenue that hadn't been reported. Her bank accounts were frozen pending the investigation. The boutique closed suddenly, a handwritten sign taped to the door. Temporary closure due to family emergency. But the real damage came from her social media posts. People who'd seen her rant, who'd witnessed her meltdown at the diner, who'd noticed the forged documents in her photos. They were all talking. Comments flooded every post she'd ever made. Why would you steal from your own niece? Those signatures looked fake in your photos. Catherine Monroe deserved better than this. Mom's former co-workers shared their memories publicly, creating a counter-narrative. They posted photos of Mom at work, talking about her dedication, her love for me, her determination to provide for my future. Victoria Wells organized a fundraiser for my legal fees, though I told her I didn't need it. It's not about need, Victoria said. It's about people wanting to do the right thing. Your mother touched a lot of lives. The fundraiser raised $3,000 in 2 days. I cried reading the comments. People I'd never met, people who'd known Mom, people who just believed in justice. The hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in late October. I dressed carefully in clothes borrowed from Bethany, a navy blazer that was slightly too big, gray slacks, shoes that pinched my toes. Thomas Garrett met me outside the courthouse, briefcase in hand. Ready, he asked. I nodded, clutching my evidence binder. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. Wood paneling and fluorescent lights. Colleen sat at the defendant's table with her lawyer, a thin man who looked uncomfortable. She didn't make eye contact when I entered. The judge, an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, reviewed the case file before calling the hearing to order. Garrett presented our case methodically. The will, Mom's letter, the forged documents, the unauthorized bank transfers, my recorded conversation with Colleen. Then came my turn to testify. I told the truth plainly, without embellishment. The judge listened carefully, occasionally making notes. When Colleen took the stand, her story fell apart quickly. She claimed power of attorney, but couldn't produce proper documentation. She claimed I was emotionally unstable, but the judge noted that the psychological report was signed by a retired doctor. You filed a false report to the school system, the judge said. You forged legal documents. You transferred funds without authorization. What do you have to say for yourself? Colleen's voice shook. I was trying to help. June was grieving. The court orders forensic analysis of the signatures in question. The judge interrupted. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks. The forensic expert's report was damning. Using specialized equipment and comparative analysis, he determined that the signatures on Colleen's power of attorney and bank transfer forms were highly likely forgeries, created through careful tracing rather than authentic signing. At the second hearing, Colleen tried one final defense. She claimed Mom had been confused by medication, that I had manipulated her, that the real will was different from what Garrett had filed. She blamed everyone, the nurses, the doctors, the lawyer, even me. The judge's patience, already thin, finally snapped. Ms. Burke, you have presented no credible evidence to support your claims. You have, however, demonstrated a pattern of deception including document forgery, financial fraud, false reporting to educational and government institutions, and attempted theft of your deceased sister's estate. Colleen's lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge continued. I'm ordering full restitution of all funds to June Monroe. The property transfer is denied. The guardianship claim is rejected. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the prosecutor's office for potential criminal charges. Colleen's face went white. You don't understand, I needed that money. My business, my debts. That is not this court's concern. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel struck like thunder. I sat frozen, barely breathing, as the weight of 18 months of fighting finally lifted off my shoulders. The restitution process took 3 weeks. Colleen's boutique went into bankruptcy. Its inventory and fixtures sold to cover debts. Her personal accounts were emptied to restore the $42,000 she'd stolen from Mom's savings. The house title was officially transferred back to me, clean and clear. One evening in early November, Colleen appeared on my porch at my house. She looked smaller somehow, deflated. Dark circles ringed her eyes, and her clothes were wrinkled like she'd slept in them. Please, she said. I have nowhere to go. I've lost everything. Can't we work something out? Family. I stood in the doorway, remembering the night she'd locked this same door behind me, carrying my life in a cardboard box. I remembered her voice telling neighbors I was unstable. I remembered the forged documents and stolen money and systematic destruction of my credibility. You had a choice, I said. You could have helped me. You could have been family. Instead, you saw dollar signs and took what wasn't yours. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, June. The answer is no. I closed the door gently but firmly. Through the window, I watched her walk away into the darkness, shoulders hunched against the cold. I felt something then, not satisfaction exactly but completion. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about restoring balance. Moving back into Mom's house felt like walking through a museum of memory. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. Her reading chair by the window, photos on the mantel, the kitchen curtains she'd sewn herself. Colleen hadn't changed anything, probably too busy planning how to sell it all. I spent weekends restoring each room, painting walls, fixing broken things. Bethany helped me sort through Mom's belongings, deciding what to keep, what to donate. In the attic, buried under old Christmas decorations, I found a wooden box with my name carved into the lid. Inside was the original handwritten letter Mom had sent before she died. Colleen must have hidden it up here, forgotten in her rush to steal everything else. But there was more. Photos of me as a baby, report cards Mom had saved, a journal she'd kept during her illness. The journal entries broke my heart and put it back together simultaneously. Mom had written about her fears, her anger at getting sick, her determination to protect me from Colleen's greed. I see how she looks at this house, one entry read. She thinks I don't notice, but I do. I'm making sure June gets everything. She deserves it. I sat in the dusty attic, crying quietly while reading Mom's words, feeling her love reaching across death to hold me up. 3 months later, I established the Catherine Monroe Memorial Scholarship Fund for students pursuing nursing careers. The fund used income from Mom's carefully invested savings to help young people who wanted to follow in her footsteps. The first scholarship recipient was announced in the spring, a girl named Diana who'd been working 3 jobs to afford community college. At the award ceremony, I read from Mom's letter about perseverance and standing up for yourself, about fighting for what's right even when it's hard. Colleen faced misdemeanor fraud charges and received probation, community service, and mandatory restitution. She left town shortly after, and I haven't heard from her since. Sometimes I wonder if she understands what she lost. Not money or property, but family, trust, integrity. In my living room, Mom's photo hangs above the fireplace, her smile captured forever in silver frame. Sometimes I talk to her, telling her about school, about college applications, about the life she made possible through her sacrifice and foresight. The inheritance wasn't just money or property. It was her voice still protecting me, her love manifested in documents and legal protections, her final gift ensuring I could build the future she dreamed of. I'm 17 now, nearly 18, living independently in the home where I grew up. I work part-time, maintain straight A's, and manage the scholarship fund. Life isn't perfect, but it's mine. Whole, safe, and built on the foundation Mom constructed with her last remaining strength. Every time I lock the front door, I remember standing on this porch with a cardboard box, watching Colleen lock me out. That girl felt powerless, betrayed, alone. This girl knows better. I learned that family isn't just blood. It's trust, sacrifice, love that endures beyond death. Mom taught me that. And in the end, her lesson was stronger than Colleen's greed. The house stands solid around me, walls holding memories and possibilities, rooms waiting to be filled with the future Mom fought so hard to give me. I'm home. Finally, completely, rightfully home.